My dad tried to give my $35,000 workshop to my golden child sister while I was at work. Now they both have criminal records and restraining orders. Hi everyone. Today's story will blow your mind, but really quick, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button. Channel's been a bit quiet lately, and your support keeps it all going. Let's jump in. Original post. I, 30M, never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but here we are. I need to document this situation because I have a feeling it's about to escalate, and I want a clear record of everything that's happening. For context, I'm James, a software engineer who also does woodworking as both a hobby and side business. 3 years ago, I purchased a house in a decent neighborhood about 40 minutes from my parents' place. The main selling point wasn't just the house itself, it was the massive basement that I immediately converted into my dream workshop. I'm talking about $35,000 worth of equipment down there. Table saw, bandsaw, planer, jointer, dust collection system, hand tools that belong to my grandfather, plus all my electronics equipment for the technical projects I do. This isn't just a hobby space. I make custom furniture pieces that sell for $2,000 to $5,000 each. Last year, I made an extra $28,000 for my woodworking alone. My younger sister Rebecca, 23F, just graduated college with a degree in art history. She's been living with our parents, Michael, 56M, and Patricia, 54F, while figuring things out. She's never held a job for more than 3 months, and our parents have always enabled her behavior. When I was her age, I was working 2 jobs to pay for community college. When she was the same age, they paid for her entire university experience, including a semester abroad in Italy. 2 weeks ago, Rebecca decided she wanted to become an artist. Not just any artist, a mixed media sculptor who needs space to create. She'd been to my workshop exactly twice in 3 years, both times complaining about the sawdust even though I have a professional-grade filtration system. Last Tuesday, my father called me while I was at work. The conversation went something like this. James, we need to talk about Rebecca's situation. What situation? I asked, already knowing where this was heading. She needs a space to work on her art. That basement of yours is perfect. You barely use it anyway. I actually laughed. Dad, I use it every evening and most weekends. I have 3 commissioned pieces in progress right now. You can do that stuff in your garage. Rebecca needs this more than you do. She's trying to start her career. The answer is no. You're being selfish. Family helps family. Family also respects family's property and boundaries. He hung up on me. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Friday afternoon, I came home from work early due to a dentist appointment. There was a U-Haul in my driveway. My father's truck was parked on the street. The side door to my basement, the one that leads directly outside, was wide open. I walked in to find my father, Rebecca, and 2 guys I didn't recognize moving my lumber rack. My limited edition Stanley planes, worth about $2,000 total, were sitting in a cardboard box by the door. My table saw had been unplugged and pushed against the wall. What the hell are you doing? I didn't yell. I've learned that staying calm in these situations gives you more power. Rebecca spun around with this bright smile. James, Dad said you agreed to let me use the space. This is going to be perfect for my studio. I looked at my father. I told you no. This is breaking and entering. Don't be dramatic, he said. I still have the spare key from when I helped you move in. A key I gave you for emergencies. This is not an emergency. This is trespassing. Rebecca's face fell. But Dad said. Dad lied. Everyone needs to leave. Now. My father stepped forward, using his height advantage. He's 6 feet 2 inches to my 5 feet 10 inches, to try to intimidate me. James, stop being ridiculous. You're going to share this space with your sister. I pulled out my phone. You have 2 minutes to leave before I call the police. You wouldn't call the cops on your own family, Rebecca said, tears starting to form. Watch me. I started dialing. My father grabbed the phone from my hand and threw it against the wall. It shattered. Okay, I said, backing toward my landline upstairs. Now it's destruction of property too. That seemed to shake him. He knew I wasn't bluffing. They left, but not before my father said, "This isn't over. You owe your sister this." I spent the rest of Friday documenting everything. I took photos of everything they'd moved, the damage to the wall where they'd scraped it with the lumber rack, and my broken phone. I called a locksmith and had them come out on emergency service to change every lock on the house. $400 I shouldn't have had to spend. Saturday morning, I installed security cameras covering every entrance and the workshop itself. Another $600. I also put up no trespassing signs and sent a formal letter to my parents' house via certified mail, revoking any implied permission to enter my property and stating that any future unauthorized entry would result in criminal charges. My mother called me Saturday night, crying. "How could you threaten to have your father arrested? He was just trying to help Rebecca. He was trying to steal my workshop, Mom. That's not help, that's theft. She's your sister. And that entitles her to my property. How exactly? You have so much and she has nothing. I have what I've worked for. She has what she's worked for. That seems fair to me." The calls and texts haven't stopped. My extended family is divided. Some relatives I haven't heard from in years are suddenly reaching out to tell me I'm selfish. Others are quietly supporting me, saying it's about time someone stood up to my father's bullying. My Aunt Linda, my mom's sister, called yesterday with an interesting piece of information. Apparently, my father had already told Rebecca she could have the space a week before he even called me. They'd been planning this takeover for days, assuming I'd cave like I did when I was younger. Here's the thing, I'm done caving. I'm done being the responsible one who has to sacrifice for the irresponsible one. I'm done with my father thinking he can bulldoze through any boundary I set. I've already consulted with a lawyer friend who says I have a solid case for trespassing, breaking and entering, since they exceeded the scope of any implied permission and destruction of property. He's drafting a cease and desist letter that will make it crystal clear that any further attempts to enter my property or harass me will result in immediate legal action. Rebecca has started posting on social media about how her dream has been crushed by her selfish brother who values things over family. I haven't responded, but I've screenshot everything in case I need it for a restraining order. I know this sounds extreme, but my father has been pulling moves like this my entire life. When I was 16, he gave my car, that I'd saved for and bought myself, to Rebecca when she turned 16 because she needed it more. When I got accepted to a good engineering school, he said we couldn't afford it, then paid for Rebecca's art history degree at a private college that cost twice as much. This ends now. The workshop stays mine. They can die mad about it. Update 1 week later. Well, the cease and desist letter was delivered yesterday, and the family explosion has been spectacular. My father showed up at my work. Security had to escort him out when he refused to leave. He was screaming about how I'm destroying the family, and how he made me who I am. My boss, Jennifer, who's been incredibly understanding, asked if I needed to take some time off or work from home for a while. I'm taking her up on the work-from-home option for the next 2 weeks. The security footage from my house has been interesting. My father has driven by 6 times in the last 3 days, slowing down each time. Rebecca came by once and actually tried her old key in the lock, then seemed surprised when it didn't work. She stood there for about 5 minutes, taking photos of my house before leaving. My mother has escalated from crying to threats. She called to inform me that I'm out of the will. I laughed and reminded her that based on their spending habits and the fact that they refinanced their house 3 times to pay for Rebecca's expenses, there won't be anything to inherit anyway. She hung up on me. But here's where it gets really interesting. My cousin Kevin, who works in real estate, reached out with some concerning information. Apparently, my father had been asking him about the legal process for claiming squatters' rights and whether there was any way to force a property sale if a family member was in mental distress and needed the funds. Kevin told him flatly that none of that would work and that he should drop whatever scheme he was cooking up. Kevin also warned me that my father had been unusually interested in the details of my mortgage and whether I had any co-signers. I bought the house entirely on my own. I've had to block 17 family members on social media so far. Rebecca's sob story has really made the rounds. She's painted herself as a struggling artist whose dream was crushed by her heartless brother who hoards resources he doesn't need. What she fails to mention is that I offered to help her rent a studio space downtown. I even offered to pay the first month's rent. She turned it down because it wasn't convenient and didn't have the right energy. The right energy, by the way, means she wanted to live in my house rent-free while using my basement. My father let slip during his rant at my workplace that the plan was for Rebecca to move into my guest room temporarily while she got established as an artist. Temporarily, in my family's vocabulary, means until someone forces a change. My Aunt Linda has been my inside source through all of this. She told me that my parents are now scrambling because Rebecca has been telling all her friends about her upcoming art studio and has even started ordering supplies on my parents' credit cards. She's apparently already spent about $3,000 on materials for sculptures she planned to create in my workshop. The thing that really gets me. I found out from Linda that Rebecca has been telling people she's going to convert my woodworking space into an art studio permanently. Not share it, completely take it over. She even had plans drawn up by a friend for how she wanted to renovate my workshop. These plans included removing all my built-in workbenches and tool storage that I spent 6 months building by hand. I've upgraded my security system to include an audible alarm. I've also informed my neighbors about the situation and asked them to call the police if they see my family members on my property. My next-door neighbor, Robert, is a retired cop and has been incredibly supportive. He told me he's seen this kind of family entitlement before and that I'm handling it correctly by establishing firm legal boundaries. The lawyer has sent a second, more strongly worded letter after the incident at my workplace. This one explicitly threatens a restraining order if the harassment continues. It also includes a demand for $500 to replace my phone and $400 for the locksmith, plus the cost of the security system installation as damages resulting from their trespassing. My father responded by leaving a voicemail calling me a disappointment and saying my grandfather would be ashamed of me for choosing money over family. That's rich, considering my grandfather left me his tools specifically because he knew I would use and appreciate them. He left Rebecca his coin collection, which she sold within a month for spending money. I'm starting to realize how deeply dysfunctional this all is. In therapy this week, yes, I started therapy because of all this. My therapist helped me see that I've been the family stabilizer for so long that they can't comprehend me having boundaries. Every time I've succeeded, it's been treated as a family resource. Every time Rebecca has failed, it's been treated as a family emergency requiring my sacrifice. Not anymore. Tomorrow, I'm meeting with a lawyer to discuss next steps. We're preparing for the possibility that this escalates further. I've already been approved to work from home indefinitely if needed, and I'm considering selling this house and moving somewhere my family doesn't know about. It's extreme, but so is their behavior. I'll update again if anything significant happens. For now, I'm sitting in my workshop, working on a commissioned dining table, and enjoying the peace that comes with enforced boundaries. Update 2, 3 weeks after first update. The restraining order was filed and approved on Tuesday. I didn't want it to come to this, but my family forced my hand. After my last update, things escalated beyond what I could have imagined. It started with what I'm now calling the Saturday incident. I was in my workshop, working on that dining table I mentioned, when I heard glass breaking upstairs. I grabbed my phone, my new one, and a hammer and went to investigate. My back door's window was shattered, and the door was open. Rebecca was in my kitchen, going through my drawers. My father was in my living room, unplugging my television. I didn't say anything. I just started recording video and called 911. "He's stealing from us," Rebecca screamed when she saw me. "This house should be ours. You don't deserve any of this." My father started toward me, but I held up the hammer. "The police are on their way. I'm recording everything. Do not come any closer." He actually laughed. "You won't do anything. You're weak, just like you've always been." Weak? I'm the one who paid for this house. I'm the one with a career. I'm the one who isn't breaking into houses like a common criminal. The police arrived within minutes. Benefits of living in a good neighborhood. My father tried to tell them it was a family dispute and that he had permission to be there. I showed them the cease and desist letter, the security footage of them breaking the window, and the video I'd just taken. They were both arrested. My father for breaking and entering and destruction of property. Rebecca for criminal trespassing and attempted theft. She had my laptop in her bag. My mother called me from the police station, hysterical. "How could you have them arrested? Your own family. They broke into my house, Mom. What did you expect me to do? Let them have what they need. You have insurance." That's not how any of this works. The charges stuck. My father spent the weekend in jail before making bail. Rebecca was released the same night, but has a court date next month. The prosecutor said that with the video evidence and the clear pattern of escalation, they're taking this seriously. That's when the real harassment started. My phone rang constantly, unknown numbers, extended family friends I hadn't spoken to in years. The voicemails ranged from disappointed to threatening. Someone, I suspect Rebecca, signed me up for dozens of spam services. My work email was flooded with newsletter subscriptions and crude messages. But the worst part was when they contacted my clients. I don't know how they got the information, but 3 of my woodworking clients received calls claiming I was mentally unstable and that their furniture orders wouldn't be completed. Fortunately, my clients know me well enough that they immediately informed me of the calls, but the damage to my reputation could have been catastrophic. That's when I filed for the restraining order. My lawyer, who's been incredible through all this, fast-tracked it given the arrest records and the documented harassment. The judge granted it immediately. My parents and Rebecca are now legally required to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my home, and my workplace. They cannot contact me directly or through third parties. The family explosion has been nuclear. I've received dozens of messages from relatives calling me everything from heartless to evil. My grandmother, who I thought would understand, left me a voicemail saying she's removing me from her will and that I'm no longer her grandson. But here's the interesting part. I've also received support from unexpected places. My cousin Sarah, who I haven't talked to in 5 years, reached out to tell me she's proud of me for standing up to them. She shared her own stories of my father's manipulation and my mother's enabling that I never knew about. My uncle Thomas, my father's older brother, called to tell me about how my father had tried similar things with him decades ago, trying to claim ownership of tools their father left to Thomas, demanding money for Rebecca's expenses because Thomas was family and family helps. The most surprising support came from Mrs. Patricia, different Patricia, my parents' next-door neighbor. She contacted me through Facebook to tell me she's witnessed years of my parents' favoritism and manipulation. She even offered to testify if needed about the times she's heard them planning to take my things because James won't do anything about it. I've had to make some hard decisions. I've changed my phone number, only giving the new one to essential contacts. I've made all my social media private and removed anyone who might feed information to my family. I've installed additional cameras and a more sophisticated alarm system that alerts directly to the police. Work has been incredibly supportive. My boss has made it clear that any harassment at the workplace will be met with their legal team's full force. They've also agreed to let me work under a slight alias for client-facing work to make it harder for my family to track my professional activities. As for my workshop, it's become my sanctuary more than ever. I've actually been more productive in the last 2 weeks than I was in the previous 2 months. There's something liberating about not having that sword hanging over my head, wondering when the next family guilt trip or manipulation attempt will come. The dining table I was working on is finished and delivered. The client was so happy with it that they've commissioned a matching cabinet set. I'm also starting to teach woodworking classes on weekends, something I've wanted to do for years but never had the emotional energy for because I was always dealing with family drama. Final update, 2 months later. I wasn't planning to update again, but so many people have messaged asking for closure that I thought I'd share where things stand now. The criminal cases have been resolved. My father pled guilty to misdemeanor criminal trespass and got probation plus community service. He also has to pay for the damage to my door. $1,200. Rebecca pled down to a lesser charge and got probation. Both have criminal records now, which my father is apparently devastated about since he's been trying to get a promotion at work. The restraining orders remain in place. They haven't tried to contact me directly, though I know from various sources that they're still talking about me plenty. Here's the interesting development. Rebecca actually got a job. Not as an artist, as a receptionist at a medical office. Apparently, the reality of legal fees and having a criminal record was the wake-up call she needed. From what I hear through the family grapevine, she's been there for 6 weeks now, which is a record for her. She also moved out of my parents' house. My cousin Kevin told me she's renting a small apartment with a roommate. No art studio, but she has a job and her own place, which is more adult progress than she's made in years. My parents, on the other hand, are not doing well. My father's rage has apparently turned inward. My Aunt Linda tells me he spends most of his time in his garage, drinking beer and ranting about ungrateful children. My mother has thrown herself into supporting Rebecca financially, despite Rebecca actually trying to be independent for once. The extended family has mostly moved on to other drama. A few relatives still won't speak to me, but honestly, those aren't relationships I miss. The relatives who supported me have become closer friends than they ever were before. My grandmother did remove me from her will, but joke's on her. My Uncle Thomas told me she has about $3,000 to her name and a house that's mortgaged to the hilt. The inheritance she's been holding over everyone's heads for years is essentially nothing. As for me, I'm thriving. My woodworking business has exploded. Those classes I started teaching, I have a waiting list 3 months long. I've hired an assistant to help with the administrative side of things. I'm actually considering quitting my software job next year to do woodworking full-time. I'm also in a relationship now. I met Jennifer at a craft fair where I was selling some pieces. She's a metalworker who makes incredible sculptures, the kind of art Rebecca claimed she wanted to make but never actually did. We're taking things slow, but it's nice to be with someone who understands both creativity and boundaries. The workshop has evolved too. I've added a metal lathe and some other tools for Jennifer to use when she's over. Sharing the space with someone who respects it and contributes to it is actually wonderful. Everything sharing with Rebecca would never have been. The most unexpected development. My Uncle Thomas has started coming over on Saturdays to work on projects together. He's retired and has decades of experience I'm learning from. He told me my grandfather would be proud of how I handled everything and that I'm the only one in the family who inherited his backbone along with his tools. Last week, I drove past my parents' house on the way to a client meeting. It was unavoidable. They live on a main road. Their house looks tired, neglected. The garden my mother used to maintain so pridefully is overgrown. My father's truck has a flat tire. It looks like the house of people who've given up. I felt sad for a moment. Not regret. I'd do everything the same way again. But sad for the family we could have been if they'd just respected boundaries and treated their children equally. Then I drove on to my client meeting, where I signed a contract for a $15,000 custom furniture set. My biggest commission yet. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just living your life well, enforcing your boundaries, and letting toxic people face the natural consequences of their actions. My workshop is still mine. My house is still mine. My life is still mine. And for the first time in my entire life, I feel genuinely free. To everyone who messaged with support and shared their own stories of family boundary issues, thank you. Knowing I wasn't alone in this made all the difference. And to anyone dealing with similar situations, you don't owe anyone access to your life, your property, or your success just because they're family. Blood doesn't grant them the right to violate your boundaries. Stand firm. It's worth it.